So Ontario is going all in on electric vehicles. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, it's a pretty bold move, right? We have this article from the National Post, and Premier Ford seems to be betting big on EVs. But the question is, will people buy them?
That's the million-dollar question. They're attracting huge investments from companies like GM and Ford, and there's even talk of making batteries here.
That could be a game changer for Ontario, right? Becoming a major player in the EV market.
Absolutely. Jobs, manufacturing, Ontario has the workforce, the infrastructure, and access to key battery materials. It could be a big opportunity.
And this is a big deal,
Totally.
they cut the rebates for people buying electric cars.
Yeah, that's a significant hurdle.
For sure, EVs aren't cheap, and those rebates made a difference for many people.
A huge difference. Study after study shows incentives are key in getting people to switch to electric. Without them, EVs are still a tough sell for most buyers, even with gas savings in the long run.
So why scrap the rebates then? What's the reasoning behind that?
The Ford government is focused on the deficit, saying the rebates were too expensive. They argue that mostly wealthier buyers benefited from them.
Okay, economic concerns, but is there also a political angle? Are there industries that might not want to see everyone switch to EVs overnight?
Definitely. The traditional auto industry and oil and gas sectors would prefer a slower transition, as a rapid shift could disrupt their businesses.
Right. So there is less disruption for them, but doesn't that pose a risk for Ontario? What if they invest in all this EV manufacturing, but no one buys the cars because they're too pricey?
Exactly. That's what makes this such an interesting gamble. Ontario's going big on the supply side, building factories and becoming a manufacturing hub. But will there be demand for most people if the cars are out of reach?
It's tricky, right? You need to build up the industry, but what's the point if no one's buying?
Exactly. It's like, hey, we're rolling out the red carpet for big companies, but did we forget about the people driving these cars?
Yeah, and that's where those incentives were crucial. The article mentions Ontario's old rebate program.
Yeah,
Sure, it was expensive, but it did get people into EVs.
exactly.
And it wasn't just the wealthy buying. Those rebates helped make EVs accessible to more people. Plus, it sent a signal that Ontario, at that time under the Liberals, was serious about EVs. Now, cutting the rebates seems to send a mixed message.
Right, so no more big rebates. But what can they do instead? How do you make EVs more appealing and affordable for people? There are options like more targeted consumer incentives. To boost the adoption of EVs, Ontario could consider offering tax incentives like sales tax waivers or credits to cut purchase costs. It could also subsidize infrastructure or partner with utilities for cheaper public charging rates to lower charging expenses. Finally, how about teaming up with insurers to offer reduced premiums for EV owners, further encouraging their use?
More help for people who need it most.
Exactly. And then there's the charging infrastructure. The article touches on it briefly, but it's a big issue. Range anxiety is real. People worry about running out of charge.
Oh, for sure. That's my biggest concern. I live in an apartment. Where will I charge an EV?
Exactly. So you need more charging stations, but not just anywhere. They must be reliable, fast, and conveniently located at work, in apartment buildings and shopping malls.
Make it easy for people. But isn't there also a perception problem? A lot of people still think EVs are too expensive or impractical.
Definitely. There's still this belief that EVs don't have the range, are not safe, or are only for the wealthy. That's where public education comes in. People need to know EVs save on fuel in the long run and are good for the environment.
And with gas prices staying high, the savings on fuel can't be ignored.
Exactly. Reminding people of that could help sway more buyers toward EVs.
Good point.
And it's not just about individual buyers. The government could also encourage businesses to electrify their fleets. Delivery trucks, taxis, even police cars.
Imagine electric police cars.
Exactly. Fleet electrification could make a huge difference.
So, we're talking targeted rebates, more charging stations, public awareness campaigns, and pushing businesses to go electric.
It's a start, but the article didn't cover another puzzle piece.
What's that? What did they miss?
Think about where the electricity for these EVs is coming from.
Oh, right. All those cars need to plug in somewhere.
Exactly. And if the electricity comes from carbon in some form, like the current and planned expansion of natural gas plants, that's taking a big step back in solving the problem.
Some experts argue that Ontario's reliance on natural gas significantly hampers progress in tackling the climate crisis. They contend that the province should pursue more aggressive renewable energy strategies.
Exactly. So, Ontario needs to hurry up and invest in much more renewable energy, such as wind, solar, and hydropower. Otherwise, this EV boom will put a massive strain on the grid.
So it's not just about building the cars or getting people to buy them. You need the whole package clean energy too.
It's all interconnected. The article discusses jobs and manufacturing extensively, but not enough about the environmental impact.
That's a miss because if Ontario wants to lead, they must prove they're serious about sustainability.
Exactly. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
So the big question, can Ontario pull it off? Can they become a model for sustainable transportation?
It's definitely a gamble. A lot could go wrong, but the potential is vast.
Well, this has been fascinating. We've just scratched the surface of this whole EV story.
Definitely. These deep dives are all about going beyond the headlines to dig into the complexities.
Absolutely. And this one's got me thinking. I'll be keeping a close eye on Ontario's EV situation. Thanks for breaking it down.
Anytime. It's been a pleasure.